Alright, Part 4, Payment of Related Activity Authority granted with the U.S. Chief Disbursing Officer, or CDO. Table of Contents, Chapter 2000, Overall Disbursing Rules over all federal entities. Chapter 2000, Overall Disbursing Rule for all federal entities. The Treasury Financial Manual, the chapter of the guns, federal entities, the overall disbursing rules, the scope of the 2010, the scope of the applicability, principle of the control of the disbursement, the distribution of all the disbursement, legal, proper, the correct, all the disbursement, incorrect, are accurately recorded, the report of the reconcile with the timely, efficient manner with every federal entity, the internal management control of the rules, related procedure of the disbursement, should be the for the operating need of the particular federal entity that should conform with the Department of Treasury, the regulation of the relay of the principle of the same with the internal management control prescribed Federal Accounting Standard Advisory Board of Internal Management and Control of the File with the Yellow Book of the Government Accounting Office, website of the Green Book of the Bureau of the Official Service, the website of the all federal and if include federal and if that does not include official service, the disbursement payment must be vigilant the risk, the efficient, the extent, the regard for the providing act for the reliable payment of data in advance of the payments being made with the federal entities also need to ensure that they have the ability to control the flow of all the payments being during the budget year of the transition, debit ceiling constraints, event of the government budget year of the transition, debt ceiling or constraint of the Treasury will invoke the rule of the processing payments to allow the Federal Reserve Bank of the debit the Treasury general account, Treasury General Account or TGA, specifically instruct for the electronic payment for file submission, Federal Reserve Bank of the event with the vice official card for the non-Treasury, the disbursing officer for the shipper for the Treasury Finance Manual, Volume 1, Part A, Chapter 4000, Subsection 40, 4020, 10, Rules under the Government Official Credits for the guidance for the federal entity that may submit with the Central Accounting Reporting of the Treasury and Counting Civil Business Evident Type Code, Reporting Classification, Initial Payment that all federal entities will classify the transaction, Property Command, Component Base for the Central Accounting Reporting for the Treasury, Accounting Civil the Bureau, Business Event Type Code, Transaction have actually initiated before the CAR's website for the new component of the CAR's Treasury Accounting Civil the Business Event Type Code format requiring federal entities should use the CAR's Treasury Accounting Symbol the Bureau Business Event Type Code for the contact either distribution or disbursing officer for the official service of the Federal Disbursement Services for information assistance. Treasury tracks new banking as well as the other regulatory requirements that impact payment that have been incorporated with the requirements of the rules of the procedure for the system. Some of the requirements for the include the natural operating rules developed and natural formula known as the nature of the electronic payment is associated in the Federal Reserve operating circulars, regulation, financial sanction, control of imposed for the Treasury official of the foreign act for the control of the improper payment, the Elimination Recovery Act of the 2010 Federal Entities Disbursement Payment through the Treasury must comply. These requirements to comply with the procedures are built with the Treasury disbursement profits do not require special interface process. The otherwise must be rebuilt, maintain federal entity that disburse through the Treasury. Or Section 2015 Authority, Title 5 U.S. Standard Code 301, Title 12 U.S. Standard 9265, 266, 1760, 1789, 8, 30, 31 U.S. Standard Code 321, 31, 31, 22, 3101 through 3304, 33, 21, 33, 22, 33, 25, 33, 27, 33, 33, 28, 3, 33, 29, 3, 31, 33, 33, 33, 33, 32, 33, 35, 33, 36, 33, 43, 35, 50, 35, 11, 35, 12, 35, 13, 35, 21, 35, 28, and 35, 29, 35, 41, and 51, 12, and 6503. Alright, Section 2020, Term of the Definition. Term definition related to the chapter believe you the Treasury Financial Measure Manual Glossary. Section 2025, the Anti-Deficiency Act. Federal entity that incur the obligation of appropriation continuing with the resolution prescribed with the violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act, the certifying officer that should approve the payment of the obligation incurred with the federal entities only with the Congress have the enacted legislation extending the obligation list over the prohibition contained with the chapter of the applicable to all CO of the certifying officer for each of the administrative department of the federal entity that is responsible for the property instruct the disbursing officer for these prohibitions. Section 2030 for the complying with the Executive Order 1322 for the blocking of the prohibiting transaction with a person who commit the threat to commit the support terrorism. Executive Order 1322 for the prohibit the transaction person who commits the threat to commit the support terrorism. OFAC for the maintain specially designated nationals block person left with provide the list of individuals that need to cover the Executive Order 1322 for the specially designated nationals block person list for the include with the additional restrictive time with a foreign asset Control Regulations, Title 31, CFR Chapter 5. Federal entities must not make the certified payment of the withdrawal of the tax warrants payable to individual organizations listed in the special designated nationals block. Person list of the federal entity should consult with the standard of the special designated national block person list before making the payment. The direct question, the example, the Order 1322 for special designated nationals block person on the list of the OFAC. The contact information, Department of the Treasury, Office of Foreign Asset Control, website 202-622-2490. Section 2035 of the Debt Collection Improvement Act of 1996, the Debt Collection Improvement Act was codified with the pertinent part of the Title 31 U.S. State Card 37 and 16, the requirement of the federal disbursement official to withhold all of the part of federal payment is paying to the person and the only owes delinquent and non-tax debts in order to satisfy the debts of the process known with the offset of the official service has issued the regulation governing offset of federal payments to collectively delinquent non-tax debt at Title 31 CFR 285.5 of the authoring collecting delinquent tax debt, although it continues to levy these certain federal payments can be found in Title 26 U.S. Standard Code 6331 for additional information. Federal entity responsibility of the Debt Collection Improvement Act of the Treasury Offset Program, or see the Treasury Financial Manual Volume 1 Part 3 6100. Section 2040 with the electronic fund transfer, the disbursement general guidelines. All federal payments made with the federal must be made with the electronic fund transfer in accordance with the Title 31 CFR Part 208. With the waiver apply with the requirement, it does not apply with the payments of the Internal Revenue Code. In 1980, so the individual will receive the type of the payment they not eligible to deposit the Treasury the sponsor account with the fine, the direct express account. Account with the U.S. debit card account with another account established pursuant to Title 31 CFR Part 208. 52811 waive the electronic funding transfer requirement of most of the federal payments are eligible to deposit the Treasury the sponsor account. Therefore, most new federal payment recipients must receive either a direct deposit on the account of the recipient financial institution or an electronic delivered payment of the Treasury sponsored account. Federal entities must make all the vendor payments for the electronic fund transfer if there are no waivers available to the vendor recipients of the class payment. Since 24010 with the electronic fund transfer disbursement federal payment of the 104010 federal entity the process of new federal payment recipients. Federal entity has been authorized to Treasury the process of new federal non-tax payment that requires into the Treasury sponsor account must form and inform the recipient of the requirement to receive the payment of either an account or recipient financial institution Treasury sponsor account prior to certifying such payment. The federal entity should refer to the recipient electronic fund transfer requirements prescribed in 31 Title Part 208. Federal entities which process the federal payment is required for the eligible to deposit the Treasury sponsored account must ensure that they reform the online enrollment processes. Any appropriate procedure associated with the application for the non-federal tax payment, the benefit, the retirement sale, or miscellaneous vendor for the expense of the reimbursement payment, the effect of the electronic fund transfer requirements such for the payments of the federal entity with the remove any reference to check with the federal profits forms procedure related to the receipt of the federal non-tax payment. They must ensure that all federal entity with the personal profit of the federal non-tax payment that requires the identical term of the electronic finance electronic fund transfer requirements of federal non-tax payments. Federal entity must work with the Treasury for the financial aid to develop the profit of other Treasury sponsored account with new existing federal non-tax payment. The recipient is unable to receive the payment, the direct deposit of the federal entity must ensure that any officer to receive the profit of the non-tax payment requires to have the appropriate system of the receiver of the place and enroll the recipient of the direct deposit of the Treasury sponsored account. Alright, no benefit paying or federal entities that are not reconfigured with the enroll of the new beneficiary of the Treasury sponsor of the account. Either the batch for the when a web enrollment must interact with the recipient with the contact with the Treasury call for the sign of the switch for the check with the Treasury for the special sponsor account within 3 minutes for the benefit of awards recipient who is able to do so with the contact with the Treasury within 6 months for the benefits of award that enroll with the Treasury sponsor account. Apply the waiver with the electronic funding transfer requirements outlined in subsection 2035 that comes with the new federal payment, the recipient's payment of checks may be granted with the new federal non-tax payment, the recipient only with the following circumstances in accordance with Title 31 CFR Part 208. 2040-20 automatically waive the requirement of no further action, though by the recipient automatic waive to apply with the following circumstances. Individuals who were born prior to May 1st, 1921 who are receiving the payment is by check with the March 1st, 2013. Individuals who receive the type of the payment the Treasury does not offer delivery with the Treasury sponsored account, such for the case of the payment is not required to be made electronic funds transfer unless until the payment may be eligible to deposit the Treasury sponsored account. And the individual is ineligible for the Treasury sponsored account because of the suspension and cancellation. Individual Treasury sponsored account with a financial agent. Alright, 2040-20B, the hardship waiver the requirement of the individual contact trip, the review approved the hardship waiver the may apply for the payment of the electronic fund transfer of the info of the hardship of the beneficiary because of the individual inability to pay it managed the account with financial institution treasury sponsor account. Hardship waiver would be for the payment of the eligible to apply for the treasury sponsor account with because of the mental impairment because of the individual lives in a remote geographical location lacking infrastructure to support electronic financial transaction. Federal entities may permit the check of the payment temporarily with the individuals who specially request the payment the check with because of the mental with impairment of the general geographical hardship of the youth. The circumstance the federal entity must inform the recipient that they are permitted to receive the payment of the check with the interim period that may make contact with the treasury about the continuing to receive the payment of the check within the future of the other notifying the official service with the individual agents request the waiver. Federal entity is not reachable for the managing of the waiver of the profits. The new beneficiary officials of the official agent manage the waiver process. Note if the new benefit recipient federal payment at which is eligible to deposit the treasury sponsored account specifically request payment with the check with because of the mentally impairment with the geographical hardship. Federal entity may direct these individual contact with the treasury to discuss how they will receive the future benefit payment. The federal entity can satisfy the requirement to include the language in their benefit award letters to the recipient stating of the payment of the electronic fund transfer is required directing beneficiary for the hardship of the contact with the treasury to receive the benefits by check with the federal entities may the alternate means of communicating information recipient provide appropriate language. Treasury with the telephone number to share with the recipient of the treasury means with the age of the beneficial federally ends for the ensure the appropriate procedure place of the informed benefit new benefit check the recipient of their responsibility for the contact treasury about how they will receive the future benefit payments. 2040-30, temporary delay in the electronic fund transfer and enrollment. An individual that requests additional time to make it an electronic fund transfer decision. Federal non-tax payment of the direct deposit eligible to deposit the treasury sponsored account but does not have the banking information available at the time of the federal payment applicant is enrolled with the direct deposit federal entity may permit payment with a temporary by check. Federal entity must inform the individual subsequently respond with the request of payment check with a permanent basis of the electronic funding transfer requirement is needed to contact with the treasury to about with continuing the receiving of the future payment of the by check with the individuals who request additional time with the electronic funding transfer decision who fail to contact with the federal entity within 3 months of the contact about the treasury may automatically enroll to receive the payment to the treasury sponsored account. Alright, 2040 benefited recipient complying with the benefit of paying with the federal entity should be aware that the individual check the recipient failed to call for the treasury required under the section of the contact with the treasury within 6 months of the initial federal payment may be automatically enrolled and receive the federal payment of the treasury sponsored account with the federal entity may be ensured that the ending of the office to process the federal payment the appropriate system proceeds with access place and change of the recipient payment election from check the treasury the sponsored account upon request. 2040-50 federal entity process the existing federal payment of recipient of federal entity if they are not responsible for managing the waiver of the profit of the existing federal payment of recipient officials for the managing the waiver of the profit of the contact with the existing shipping recipients by the requirement to receive the payment of electronic federal entities must work with the treasury of the official agent to develop the process of responding and enroll the current check the recipients who do not wish to have their federal payment made a direct deposit to be automatically enrolled to receive the payments of the treasury sponsored account with the federal entity may ensure for the office of the processing federal payment to have the appropriate system to receive the SS of the plaintiffs and chain the upon the request of the recipient payment of the election from the check was received their direct deposit the treasury sponsored account. Alright, 2040-60, the temporary change of the electronic fund transfer to check with certain circumstances federal entity may even need the temporarily switch of the recipient payment of the election from the electronic fund transfer the check if the recipient account with the closed various for reason the recipient's decision close the account because of the account was closed due to the fraud of the mischief of the circumstance of the federal entity must inform the recipient of the treasury electronic funding treasury the electronic fund transfer the requirement that has recipient make with the arrangement to receive the payments of electronic individuals who have the circumstance receive the payment, but a direct deposit of the interim of the sponsored account with the permitted to receive the check of payments with an interim base. However, the federal entity must inform these recipients if they are the responsible to contact the treasury about continuing to receive the future payment of the check outlined in subsection 2035-15. Payment by check is also permitted one of the two payments, like with the circumstance where the payment of electronic funding transfer cannot be made immediately after the enrollment because of the operational constraint of the federal entity must contact the treasury call center if any of the questions about electronic funding transfer and check the disbursement. 2047, the vendor payments. Treasury of the Electronic Fund Transfer, Rule 31, CFR Part 280, prompt payment of the Rule Title 5, CFR Part 1315, the Federal Acquisition Regulation of the Electronic Funding Transfer, Rule of Title 48 CFR Part 13, 15, 32, 52 to provide regulatory foundation for the federal and individual to implement the electronic fund transfer quantity of the DCI of the payment of the government vendor for the Treasury electronic fund transfer of the rule of the Title 31 Part 28 require the federal payment of the electron that does not provide way for the vendor of the payments for the class from payment of the federal entity that may invoke the way for the payment of the vendor for the under certain limited circumstances set forth below, but must consult with the Treasury being done so for the determined alternative payment methods are available as far as electronic funding transfer rule of the Title 48 CFR Part 13, 15, 32 of the 52 of the draft for the use of the electronic fund transfer the federal contract payment is also provided with the collection banking information for the end of the particular with the as far as electronic fund, electronic federal acquisition regulation, electronic fund transfer rule providing electronic fund transfer contract clauses requiring government vendor for the receive the payment of electronic the condition of the boarding of the contract federal involved the use of the electronic fund transfer contract clause within their contract with the government vendor for the electronic fund transfer the contract clause requiring vendors to submit the electronic fund transfer information for federal entity. The federal entity may record the information as condition to make the first payment, the prompt payment of the rule in Title 5 the U.S. CFR Part 13, 15 require vendors to submit the electronic fund transfer information part with the proper invoice unless the federal entity proceeds to provide otherwise. Federal entity proceeds may require, for example, the electronic fund transfer the information to be collected with late interest penalties do not apply with the late payment of resulting in the vendor's failure to submit proper electronic fund transfer information timely manner. 2040-80 miscellaneous salary payments. Federal entities must make all of the miscellaneous salary payments, electronic funding, testing, transfer, unless the individual waiver under subsection of the 2035-10A, the 2035-10B, with any federal entity invoke the waiver under subsection 2035-45A. Federal entities begin with the receipt of the individual waiver that requires the miscellaneous salary payments of bank concept with the Treasury for the electronic funding transfer strategy division, EFTML, mail, physical treasury, tender, and the experience with the impediments making a miscellaneous with the salary payment of the electronic funding transfer must contact the Treasury to determine if there's an alternative means available to making the payments electronically. Alright, 2040-90 federal entity waiver. The federal entities are not required to payment of the electronic funding transfer with the following unique circumstances of the current political, financial, communication infrastructure of the foreign country does not support for the payment of electronic funding transfer. The payment is not to a recipient within an area that is designated by the President, authorized federal entity will administer that as the disaster area, waiver is limited to the payments made within 120 days of the disaster is declared military operation designated by the Secretary of Defense uniformed services with under military accident against the enemy will call for the orders of the retention to the active duty members of the uniformed services made during the war of the national emergency declared of the President of the Congress the threat of the imposed the national security, the life of the physical safe of the individual who made the in danger of the law of the enforcement action may be compromised the federal entity needs to go the services and the unusual compelling urgency that the government would be seriously injured in life of the payment made in the method of the electronic fund transfer. There is only one source for the good and source for the government would be seriously injured in life of the payment is made method other than electronic fund transfer. The federal entity does not have to expect the payment of the same recipient with the 1 year period of regular acquiring base for the remittance tab explaining the purpose of the payment is not readily available for the recipient financial institution receiving the electronic fund transfer. Should only one invoke the waiver the recipient request for the waiver the recipient falls under one of the requirements listed above the waiver this one limited base the federal entity may discover that any of the proposed waiver the Treasury to determine if the alternate means of available the payment of electronic the federal entity to experience with impediments to make payments by electronic fund should the contact Treasury with the EFTM mail the official Treasury.gov for assistance. Alright, 2040-100 federal entity complying with the Treasury monitor if the percent of federal entity the payments are made electronically monthly basis ensure the federal entity with the implementing provision Title 31 CFR Part 208 chapter of the Treasury meet the federal entity exhibiting a low electronic fund transfer rate identified by the impediment of electronic fund transfer payments to determine the strategy to address these impediments. The federal entity should document the impediments and these agreements of making their payments of the electronic fund to assist the Treasury with this analysis. Alright, 2040-110 American Rescue Plan Action Payments. Authorized American Rescue Plan Act of Title 20 of 2021, July 15, 2021, U.S. Department of Treasury Bureau. Official Services are the disbursing advance child tax credit with the payments of the behalf of the Internal Revenue Service advance. The American Rescue Plan directed for the IRS to act as the advanced child tax credit payments for the period of July 21st to December 2021. Payments were issued the payment the day of the 15th of each of the month, of the 15th fell on the weekend of the holiday. Payment payment date of the weekend holiday payment date was adjusted for the preceding business of this program remains effective until the further notice due to the possible of the ACH returns for more than information processing the advanced child tax credit payments of the ACH American Clearinghouse reference official serve the Green Book. Section 220.45 responsibility of the payment officer for the employee with certified for the voucher responsible for the ensure for the payment if properly accepted provided for the tap of the dispersing officer is not responsible for the priority payment is authorized by the chief officer of the however the dispersing officer with the knowledge of the payment if the improper should not make the payment prescribed in section 2045 relate to the issue payment of the check for the electronic the individual's commercial the entity with the non-profit the entity non-federal government the department the federal entity with deductions made from the disbursement vouchers. Section 2050 Basic Distribution Requirements General Requirement the following requirements to comply with all the distribution whether then cash check for the electronic payment through the issue without the U.S. Treasury designated deposit the bearing banks authorized lawful payments on the refunds amounts collected. Most important disbursement is sufficient information for the disbursement vouchers on documents attached for them to enable the audit of the transaction certifying the disbursing officer whether it's required by law should mark the voucher schedule supporting documentation systematically manually where they applicable to prevent duplicating payment avoid mutilation override the inadvertent deletion of the destruction or warrant and if the original invoice that has been lawful to destroy the federal entity must obtain with the duplicate of the original submitted for the invoice support. The voucher schedule for the federal entity must may process for the voucher schedule for the regular disbursement obtainable to provide a place on which the attachee for the duplicated invoice full explanation for the circumstance of the lawful destruction for the original invoice of the statement indicating that steps have been taken to prevent the duplicate payment. No federal entity shall be particularly with the alert with the possible duplicating payments whenever they have delayed payments over the extent of the period of the time after the due date they have received the duplicated copies of the invoice of the vendors have filed with claims or have submitted the invoice of the bill for more than one federal entity location of the payment have received the adjust of the invoice if they have made the payments. Alright, 2050-20 for the cash advance established proceed with the cash advance if the responsible the grantor federal entity with the manager of the cash advance with the practice of the recipient organization of the entry of the federal cash does not maintain for the family the success of the immediate disbursing the need of the federal entity must establish a system proceed with the ensure of the balance of the maintain with the commissary immediate disbursement needs success of the balance of properly return with the treasury for the advance finding and arrangements for the recipient organization unwillingly unable to comply with the terminated procedure of the federal entity should specify all of the contractual agreements for the recipient organization provide the advance payment that will be made with the times the amounts necessary to be immediate disbursement and even the figure of the calculator of the federal entity should be reviewed quarterly with the federal entity should be conducted independently annual review of the balance of the all amounts only amounts necessary to meet immediate disbursement needs to maintain the result of the review should be shared with the treasury monitor recipient organization based with the valuation cash payment with not accrued liability required except where specifically prohibited by law all listeners earned by the recipient organization around advance with the federal funds remitted with the federal entity will promptly return the funds to the treasury and immediately upon determination of the expenditure of the advance funds the disallowance in accordance with the contractual agreement the federal entity should not notify the recipient but require the return of such funds under no circumstance should the fund be returned more than 30 days after the date of the notification by the federal entity. Or 2050-30 for the pre-planning payments for the non-covered operation continuing resolution, excluding the payroll of certain circumstances of the subsection 2045 of the 20 of the responsibility for the preventing payment of the non-covered appropriation for the continuing resolution the rest of the federal entity for the certifying with the payment responsibility of the federal entity for the chief officer there for the ensure for the permit payment certified with the dispersing officer for the non-improper dispersing officer is not with the dispersing officer responsible to investigate the day with the underlying obligation for the certified scheduled payments. 2050-40 payment payrolls in general, the responsibility head of each federal entity include with the following establish, maintain the adequate payroll system, use the payroll system to provide the system, then covering pay, leave the allowances as part of the system with accounting with internal control of the acquisition accounting, auditing act of 1950 system of the control of the principal stand with related requirements prescribed by the comptroller, generally Office of Personal Management, the Office of Management, above the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor to issue the regulated with the payroll voucher preparation. Alright. 2050 payroll creation. The disbursement office know the obligation that was incurred for the funds but not available when we may not disperse the certified payment of a voucher for the circumstance that can arrive at the particular case of the payroll when the object for the time of the obligation for the curve of the operation of the continuing resolution lapse. Therefore, annual operations have not been enacted. There is no continuing resolution over the obligation that can be legally liquidated. The disbursing officer should not be to release only release payrolls that extend beyond the period provided the operation of the continuing resolution. The inclusive days for the day period surface of the primary face of the notice for the disbursing officer, whether the obligation will be incurred by the disbursing officer should not knowingly release payroll for any of the period extended beyond the commencing after the expiration date of the operation of the continuing resolution. This chargeable operation is a no-year unexpected multi-year operation. Part 2050-50A for the payroll process for the entire pay period. Sometimes the expiration date of the operation of the continuing resolution does not coincide with the end of the pay period of the disbursement officer may not relieve the payroll to include the salaries, wages for the earned beyond the expiration date of the operation of the continuing resolution. 2050-50B for the payroll proceed with a portion of the pay period through the expiration date of the disbursement ensure to make the usual advance for the relief of the payroll payment for the only of the cover the salary, the wage earned throughout the expiration date of the operation of the continuing resolution. 2050-50C payrolls payments after the expiration date. For any pay or partially covered pay period for the all secret the pay period of the federal entity should be profit the payrolls for the salary, the wage earned before and beyond with the expiration date of the operation of the Canadian resolution usual the disbursing officer may prepare the payments for such report. Rules may hold themselves the immediate release upon with the approval of an appropriation of the continuation resolution. Or 2050-60 claim of the deceased employee with 1990 could proceed with the form of the use of the place of the claim of the deceased federal employee with the transfer of the government accounting of the OPM to terminate for the pursuit of the transfer of the function of the pursuit of the public law 104-53 day of June 28, 1996 with the acting of the director of the office of management but it delegated this of the transaction fund to the other federal NEC Title 31 U.S. Standard Code 3702 with the Title 5 U.S. Standard Code 5883 the claims involve the federal civilian employees compensation leave it themselves and the deceased employee with accounts. 2050-70 if the pay and information federal and each of the uniformly filed with the rules below the connection of the designation of the pay of the government payments. 2050-78 of the payments of an individual, all case the first name, middle initial, if any, with the surname of the pay, the omit with the punctuation marks, except for the use of the common set for the names of the more than two payees. 2050-70B with the payment of the joint account federal and each should carefully distinguish between the use of the term joint and several account, the interaccount, the situations of the trust, the descendant of the estate of the trustee, the executive of the administrator of the account, with the two individuals who joint entitled with the receipt of the payment of the voucher shall include all the name of the pay of the use of the word be and before the name of the last pay of the where the account is not a joint account with it is held with the two or more of the individuals and or before the name of the last pay of the do not under any circumstance designate with the word estate with the as of the pay of the for example the estate of the A of the deceased when with the particular estate has only a trustee with a personal representative with the designated with the individual name and as of the pay of the representative the capacity for example T for the trustee the UW for the deceased then K for the testimony trust T for trustee UD for A for the data of the trustee and D for the case for the transfer of the ownership of the property between the living persons of the investor V via trust. V with the trust. E executor of the estate with the A with the deceived with the A, the minister of the estate with the B with the deceived and K with the descendant of the estate. If the estate has several trustees with the personal representative with the designated all the trustees managed for the executed by the name of the representative of the capacity for the joint pay with, for example, the ABD and the tax trust company, the trust of the AUW with the D, C's, etc. 2050 DD with the corporate trustee with the recovery receivership the name with the local bank department of the federal entity should make with the payment of payable with the liquidation of the receiver the secretary of the bank and commissioner of the bank of the pay with the name of the corporate trustee with the execute of the estate should appear with the precise designation for example secretary of the bank in the possession of the business of the property for the X trust company trustee UW for the D of this is forms varies according to designation prior with the proper liquidation of the office of the official under local law. Federal entity with the chief of the officer for the must furnish for the certified copy of the grant letter for the testamentary, the will of the trust indenture for the same with the indented pay with the duly appointed with qualified acting trustee of the executive of the instance of the where of the administrator of the executive of the code of the trustee of the personal representative of the head and discharge of the designated of the legate distributed of the beneficiaries until the receipt of the payment in question of the joint pay of the chief officer must be furnished with the first certified copy of the created distribution other property evidence of the court having the jurisdiction from the particular estate of the showing the person entitled to receive of the payment 2059 with the guardians of minor of the made the difference of the local law there's no all include the rule of determining the guardianship of who the payment should be made with the home state require of the guardians of the state over the minor to be someone rather than the other than the guardian of his or her person while the other combined follow function of the same individual local law must be explained in each case of the certified contracting officer must be furnished with the certified copy of the appointment of the particular individual authorized to receive payment on the behalf of the individual's ward designation of the paid may be made for depending on the circumstance of the particular case for the following are three examples G for guardian of the M minor G for guardian of the states of the M for the minor G, for the guardian of the person and state for the M for minor. For example, these persons are not an exclusive thing. In every case, the designated of the guardian according to the under law, local law, of the guardian parents standing with the place of the parents, loco parentes, not intended for the receive the payment on behalf of the minor of the children. The question is one of the local law for the appointment of the guardian is not required for the payment may properly made with the parent designated with the payer of the following with the F, the father M as a minor, or F father of the M a minor. Or 250, 20, 50, 100, income with the case for the guardian's minor of the designated with the classification for the governed by local law according to the title of the given, the representative with the C with the conservative with the state with the X and component, A and B with the committee with the X and competent, and G with the guardian, X with the incompetent, etc. with the prerogative of the authority to receive the payment as the certified chief officer or certifying officer of the should require the certified copy of the appointment. 2050, 110 with the corporation. There have been changed with the corporation name with the result of the merger, consolidation, or other proceed with the certifying varying such that it has been obtained with the proper state official of the federal and each of the withdrawal of the voucher from the payment of the new name federal and each of the withdrawal of the voucher to order the successor company whether it is established. Yeah, man. You can stick it in the refrigerator. Alright. Federal entity should draw the voucher in order the successor company where the established the original claim that has been dissolved after the been distributed with the new company with liquidating trustees have been discharged. When a company has been dissolved, the favor of the being liquidated with liquidating trustees with designated depends on the local law. Most jurisdiction corporations continue with the purpose of the liquidation may be the proper designated with the corporation rather than the liquidating trustee as the pay with no hard fast rule that can be established to cover all such cases. Federal entity should refer to any uncertainty details of the concern of the pay with designated with the power of the operative legal officer of the Department of the Establishment for consideration. 250, 120 unincorporated subdivision federal and they should make with the voucher payable to the order of the association with the official name of the other should be draw partners for the voucher with the confirmed name of the federal and they should refer any type of the form of the proper legal officer of the Department of the Establishment for special consideration. Or Section 2055 of the electronic invoicing processing platform. Federal entity should consider the electronic system process of the streamline with improve the efficiency of the government invoice, the IPP, the invoice processing platform, secure the web-based electronic invoicing payment information system provided with the official service. The invoice processing platform allow the federal entity to transfer the existing payment based on the order paid process and streamline electronic flow. Invoice processing platform provides centralized location view of all the transaction persons paid, the pay process, and transfer paper paste to the process of the electronic profitable federal entity within their supply with the inter-voice processing platform modular designs allow the federal entities to implement functionality phases that according to the business need of the federal entities of the federal entities, the invoice processing platform send with the electronic purchase of the order vendor of the receipt of the electronic invoice with the vendor of the invoice routing with approval of the workflow invoice processing platform uploads payment of remittance of the information for the treasury, the non-treasury, the disbursement federal entities, the line federal entities, and their suppliers review and download payment of information for additional invoice processing platform website. Our Section 2060 contract and reference of the contract with agreements of the voucher placing with the contract done with the date of the pay for the provide if the agreement is unnumbered the task for the voucher indicate the how of the payments of the made with the voucher for the federal fifth the general supply with the contract with the item of the federal supply schedule with the items done with the aggregate for the purchase for the given with the faith of the voucher for the contract done with the date of the down need not to be shown the federal acquisition regulations division of the federal acquisition regulations required contract to register the central contract to register the database before the award see the system award management website of the voucher prepare of the federal any support of the payments of the nature should for the contract number refer with the procurement instrument then identify with the procurement instrument and identify with the unique and identify with each of the contract limit agreement name the agreement number to purchase the number of the delivery order associated with the payment for the additional information federal procurement data system the period covered by the payment the name of the vendor also referred to as the part of the must contain the following name of the payee of the party whether in an or individual organization amount of the payment of the account to be charged procurement federal entity identify with the code of the governmental federal entity it does not necessarily represent the federal entity that issued the contract with the instead of the server the only as part of the unique identification of the federal procurement data system award record identifying delivery vehicle of the procurement instrument identify with the code of the federal entity the buzz does not include the down represent federal entity issued with the contract instead of the server the part of the unique identifier identification federal procurement data system and indefinite delivery vehicle records the award records for the partial identified with the link of the individual indefinite delivery vehicle record and indefinite delivery vehicle of federal entity entity identified with the rule when reporting order for the unit of the indefinite delivery vehicle, such as the government-wide acquisition contract, indefinite delivery contract, official supply schedule for the basic order, agreement of bank or blank purchase agreement to report with the procurement instrument identified with the contract number, the agreement number of the indefinite delivery vehicle for the initial of the BPA under the federal supply schedule. Of this federal supply schedule for the contract number, the additional information activity for the North American Industry Classification System product for the code manual, the PSEM manual. Alright, no federal entity to make the payments to serve the continuing the nature of the runs of the janitor, so for the success for the performance under the federal and vendor agreement to provide the payment of the definite amount with the fixed period of interval without submission of the invoice of the bills for the vendor. To ensure this helps the administrative control of the ensuring that the recurrent of the payments are unexpired with the contract agreement for the correct amount for the service of the actual performed non-duplication previously issued payments of the same goods for the services. Federal entity should agree with the number of payments of the item of the first voucher, the schedule of the particular in those cases, remove the schedule of the codes over the only one or two or three items that should consolidate with the multiple invoice of the pay and bill payment on one vendor and one with the other place for the business with the supply of the service of the government vendor into one payment of when possible. The reduced number of the vouchers prepared payments issued with the due date for the multiple bill for the invoicing for the same. In each case, the payment is manner must be agreeable with the defendant of the owner of the government establishment rate of the maybe the vendor debtor. No federal entities are incurred with due to the IPPs to send with the electronic purchase order for the supply with the receipt of the electronic invoice for the supply with according to the invoice routing and improve their workflow. Alright, 2060-10 unit price for the gasoline with other petroleum products. The purchase of the gasoline with the other petroleum products made under the contract with the provider. The unit price for the modification on the tank of the wagon with the barge for the other certification prices on the day of the point of the delivery. Show the unit price for the day of the point of the delivery on the invoice, the vouchers, audit information. Or 2065 prompt payment with the earned discount, chassis discounts, everything off the prompt payment with the federal entity should be made with the May after if the profit of the invoice, which of the discount period with the discount with the cost effect for the government of the profit of the invoice according to the specific term of the discount, but they have been off of the contract with the supply of the federal entity should take out the discount only with the invoice. They can be paid with the specific discount period with the arrow cost for the government for effect of the management of the federal entity should be submitted with the voucher covering the payment that is near the last day of the prompt payment of the possible prompt payment act. Conditions are met with the check payment of the day of the mail deposited within the period of the not received the recipient over the period of the meet the the ACH Fed wire payment settlement the day of the period stamp payment settlement day of the payment within the prompt payment period day. For information, prompt payment website. Section 27, the assignment of the basic voucher number, the administration of the procedure, process of the federal entity, the assignment of each of the voucher, identification number, the identification number committee system generated manually, enter for the institute, used all accounting and auditing, profit of the federal entity, must place number of space identified voucher number, the stamp of the well from all the voucher, the rules apply with regardless for the operating and administrator of the units of the division federal entity, the oversight of the payment of the federal entities are not required to place, subject to the disbursing officer for the voucher number, the subject as on the voucher, except for the case of the vouchers covering charge of the transportation, subject to the administrator of the person necessary to assign control of the accounting number of the payment, document these numbers for the conservative supplementary awarded with the other two official identification numbers prescribed above these amounts for two basic vouchers, the invoice due for the one paid that may properly be combined in one payment to clearly indicate that the individual basic voucher, the number of the voucher number, the column of the voucher schedule for the add and list for the items of single payment. Alright, 2075 pre-audit voucher for the effect of the control over the disbursement required for the pre-audit the approval of the voucher before the certified with the payment the principal object for the pre-audit voucher for the determine whether the required administrator of the authorization procurement approval of the payment were obtained. Funds are available at the time obligation incurred with the obligation incurred with the funds if not available then the payment may not be certified by the payment voucher may not be disbursed. The payment is permitted by the law according to the term of the applicable agreement. Amount of the payment the name of the paid with the correct of the proper taxpayer and identification number of the private employer, the identification number, individual tax number, the identification number, pay ID number that is provided with each for the pay the not duplication of the good payment that's not a duplication goods received the services performed that were in accordance with the agreement of the quality of the price for the amounts of the accurate with all costs effective the discount that have been taken. All applicable deductions have been made with credited with the proper accounting correct amount with the appropriation fund with the payment that will be made with available for the purpose of the indicated with the appropriate treasury account symbol, business event type code, the proper forms of the documentation were used, special certificates if required were furnished, special vendor reporting entry that if required were finished, the first summary schedule for the payments are submitted in conformance with the payment augmentation manager standard format. All right, 207510 maximum payment amounts. Maximum amount of which the federal entity can issue the individual payment of funds for the type of the payment instrument, the maximum individual payment amount for each of the payment instrument, the check for the ACA electronic payment, the federal wire same-to-day payments for the RS5, the check for the may issue individual maximum individual payments up to $999,999,999.99. Federal entity discouraged from the authorizing individual check payment at less than $5. Federal entities generally prohibited from either the check for the issue of the federal payment. They include the benefit of retirement, sale of the miscellaneous vendor expense, the reimbursement tax payment requirement that does not apply to the payments of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. The automated check printing system of the Federal Sympathy Regional Financial Center can print out the amounts for the $999,999,999.99. Federal entities should attempt to use the electronic mechanisms for all large dollars amounts. The ACH electronic payment that may be issued for the maximum individual payment of $999 million, and so on. Federal wire same day payment to base shift to maximum individual payment of $9,999,999,999.99. Additional federal entity should use the federal for payments under the $100,000. Alright, Section 2080 Federal Offset Program, 2080-10A for the Debt Collection Improvement Act of 1986 of the Debt Collection Improvement Act requires the federal government to withhold or reduce certain federal payments for the debt of delinquent and non-tax debt owned for the United States by pay the process known as administrative offset. The Debt Collection Improvement Act requires the federal entities to identify with the federal employees who have the delinquent debt of the United States with the youth and process known as the centralized salary offset with the Treasury Offset Program to compare with the delinquent debt with the information federal salary payment and information offset and the salary payment of the employee of the debt with the United States. For more information concerning the collection and improvement act of the Treasury Financial Management Volume 1 Part 3, Chapter 6100, Treasury Financial Manual Volume 1 Part 3 generally. Art 2080-10B of the Taxpayer Relief Act of the 1997, the Act authorized the Internal Revenue Code to continue with the levy up to 15% of the federal payments for the include the federal the salary payment to collect delinquent tax for the Treasury Offset Program allows also for the youth to match delinquent tax debt for the federal salary, other payments levying salary payments of the employee for the own delinquent tax for the United States. Payroll processing federal entity send of the extract file with official certificate containing the payment information for all employees. Official certificate compared with the extract file. National interact with delinquent database and identify the match to transmit and electronic file containing the identified match of debt down balances balances back to the payroll processing federal entity. The payroll processing federal entity offset with the levies of the 15% of the disposable pay and for the funds of the official service then sends the funds to the creditor federal entities. Or Section 2085 payment to prepaid accounts, Treasury prepaid card, and finally rule of the Title 31 Part 210 that permits federal government payment to prepaid account with include the debit the card, store value card, prepaid card, similar payment card with the program that's dealt with the service and certain conditions that are met. For the consumer protection of the card holder eligible to receive the federal payment to prepaid account must meet with the following requirements. The account is held with the fiscal institution. Accounts up the requirement of the pass through the deposit share and insure for the funds successful the card for the issue for the benefit of the recipient federal deposit insurance corporation, national credit union share of the insurance fund, forms of applicable law, Title 12 CFR Part 330 with the Title CFR's Part 745 of the account does not have the tax line with the credit loan agreement with the repayment of the account is triggered upon delivery of the federal payments. Issue for the account comply with all the requirements to provide the holder with the account with all of the consumer protections apply with the prepaid account with the use of the reply rules of implementing electronic fund transfer act and the Truth Lending Act. No person may issue the prepaid card with except the federal payment. In violation of these requirements, any financial institution that holds the account with a prepaid card issue with which receive the federal payment is an account with the responsible to ensure the requirements are met. Federal entities should be aware that these requirements are most promptly notified the officials if it becomes aware of any of the payments being made with a prepaid card that does not comply with these requirements. Official service becomes aware of the federal payments are being deposited with the prepaid card that does not meet with these requirements, review the situation, and takes appropriate action. Official service, for example, to refer any violation of the electronic fund transfer rule requirements appropriate regulatory bodies. In your contacts would be the Department of Treasury Bureau official disbursing debt management and then a summary updated releases, and this was Section 2000 overall dispersing rules of all federal entities.